If you ever hear a whistle outside your window after midnight, do not answer it. Do not look outside. And whatever you do, never, ever whistle back. Because something out there is waiting for you to reply. And once you do, it will never leave you alone again. My name doesn't matter, but what happened to me last winter does. And I need to tell someone before I lose my mind completely. I grew up in a small town surrounded by thick pine forests, the kind of place where the street lights end where the trees begin, and where every old-timer has a story about the woods that they tell you only once, in a low voice, and never repeat. My grandmother told me the story when I was 8 years old, sitting by the fireplace with her hands wrapped around a cup of tea that had long gone cold. She said that a long, long time ago, there was a hunter who worked these woods, a man who trapped animals for their fur and sold them in the town square. One night, deep in the forest, he heard a whistle. It was a beautiful sound, soft and haunting, like a song without words. And being a foolish young man, he whistled back, just to see who else was out there so late. The whistle came again, closer this time. He whistled back again, curious now, maybe even excited. By the third exchange, the whistling was right behind him, and when he turned around, there was nothing there but the sound of his own breath and the wind moving through the branches. He ran home that night and he never went back into those woods after dark again. But it was already too late. For the rest of his life, every night after midnight, he would hear the same soft whistle outside his cabin, calling to him, inviting him back into the dark. He boarded up his windows. He stopped speaking after sundown. He grew thin and pale and quiet. And one morning, the townspeople found his cabin empty, the door wide open, his boots still by the fire, and his body was never found. My grandmother told me that story, and then made me promise, with my hand over my heart, that I would never whistle after midnight, no matter what I heard outside. I promised her, and for 22 years, I kept that promise until the night everything changed. It was late November, and I was staying alone at my grandmother's old cabin, the same one she used to tell me stories in, because she had passed away that spring and left it to me in her will. I had gone up there to clean it out, to pack away decades of her belongings, and I planned to stay just a few days before selling the place. The first 2 nights were quiet, uneventful, just me, a few candles, and the sound of wind pressing against the old wooden walls. But on the third night, I woke up at exactly 12:15, and I heard it, a whistle, soft and low, drifting in through the gap beneath the window. At first, I thought it was just the wind slipping through a crack in the frame, the kind of sound old houses make when they settle in the cold. I told myself that, and I tried to fall back asleep, but the whistle came again, closer, more deliberate, almost like a tune, rising and falling in a pattern that no wind could ever make on its own. My chest went tight, and I remembered my grandmother's voice from all those years ago, her hand gripping mine, telling me never to whistle back, no matter what. So I stayed still. I stayed silent. I pulled the blanket up to my chin like a frightened child and counted my own heartbeats until the whistling stopped. When morning came, I told myself it had been nothing. Some bird, some strange trick of the wind through the pines. And I went about my day packing boxes, sorting old photographs, trying to keep my mind busy so it wouldn't wander back to the sound. But that night, at exactly 12:15 again, the whistle returned. and this time it was right outside my window. So close that I could hear something shifting in the snow beneath it, like footsteps that didn't quite sound human. Too light, too careful, as if whatever was making them didn't want to be heard at all. I lay frozen in my bed, staring at the ceiling, my whole body trembling, and I whispered my grandmother's warning to myself, like a prayer. Never whistle back. Never whistle back. The whistling continued for almost 20 minutes that night, patient and rhythmic, pausing every so often as if it were listening for a response, waiting for me to break. When it finally stopped, I didn't sleep again until the sun came up. On the fourth day, I decided I would leave early, pack up what I could, and finish the rest another time. Because something about that cabin no longer felt like the safe, warm place from my childhood memories. It felt like it was watching me. But as I was loading the last box into my car, I found something tucked behind a loose floorboard in my grandmother's bedroom. A small leather journal, its pages yellowed and brittle with age. Inside, in her familiar handwriting, she had written about the same whistling, describing nights just like the ones I had just lived through, going back decades. She wrote that the whistling had started the year after the hunter disappeared, and that it came for anyone who lived in that cabin, anyone who stayed long enough for it to notice them. She wrote that she had heard it hundreds of times over the years and never once answered, and that the one rule, the only rule that mattered, was silence. Never speak to it, never sing to it, never, under any circumstance, whistle back, because the moment you do, it stops being outside the window and starts being inside the walls. My hands were shaking as I read those words, and I decided right then that I would leave that same afternoon and never come back. But as I turned to leave the room, I noticed the window was open, just a crack, letting in the cold November air, even though I was certain I had shut every window in the house the night before. I closed it, locked it, and told myself I was imagining things, that grief and exhaustion were playing tricks on my mind. That night, against my better judgment, I decided to stay just one more night, telling myself I needed the rest before driving the long road home in the dark. At 12:15, the whistling started again, but this time it was different. It wasn't outside the window anymore. It was coming from inside the hallway, just beyond my bedroom door. My blood turned to ice. I sat up in bed, staring at the thin line of darkness beneath the door, and I heard the whistle drift closer, pausing right outside my room, so close that I could hear the faint creak of the old floorboards shifting under something's weight. I clenched my jaw shut, refusing to make a single sound, remembering my grandmother's warning, remembering the hunter who never came home. The whistle came again, softer this time, almost gentle, almost inviting, like it wanted me to feel safe enough to respond. And for one terrifying moment, some part of me, some tired, frightened, curious part of me, almost did. My lips even parted slightly before I caught myself and clamped them shut, my whole body shaking under the blanket. The whistling stopped instantly, as if it had heard my hesitation, as if it knew how close it had come to getting what it wanted. Then, silence. A silence so complete that I could hear my own pulse pounding in my ears. I did not move for what felt like hours, and when the first grey light of dawn finally touched the window, I threw my belongings into my car without even bothering to lock the front door behind me, and I drove away from that cabin as fast as the icy roads would allow, my hands trembling on the steering wheel the entire way home. I sold the cabin 2 weeks later to a buyer I never met in person, and I have not gone back to that town since. But here is the part that still keeps me up at night, the part I have never told anyone until now. A few nights ago, in my apartment in the city, hundreds of miles away from those woods, I woke up at exactly 12:15 to the sound of a soft, familiar whistle drifting in through my bedroom window. So if you are ever out late at night, walking home alone, or lying awake in a quiet house, and you hear a soft whistle drifting through the dark, please, I am begging you, do not whistle back, no matter how tempting it feels, no matter how much you want to know who or what is out there. Because some doors, once you open them, can never be closed again. If this story kept you up at night, make sure you like this video and subscribe for more. Because trust me, you do not want to miss what happens next time the whistling comes back.